in a short-term 3-year deal, but what, 50 some odd is guaranteed?
58.2 in guarantees.
Real close. And I know NFL owners are not going to like this. We're getting really close to fully guaranteed contracts. The fact that it's taken this long to get even this close is incredible to me.
Well, and don't forget, Deshaun Watson's contract is a fully guaranteed contract at $230 million. So that's the fully guaranteed contract that we've seen. It's unheard of in the NFL, though, and the Browns in a unique position. So it still remains to be seen whether that was going to be the outlier or whether that is setting a new standard. What we have seen with all these contracts, Peter, that I think is interesting, which is what you just mentioned, is that all these contracts set a new record in some way, right? Like DK Metcalf, he's not the highest paid receiver in the NFL, but if you look at the guaranteed money and the signing bonus, it's the $30 million signing bonus. There, he set the record. Now, that is the highest ever for a wide receiver in the NFL. So when we look at Kyler Murray's contract, it's on a per annual basis. It makes him the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL to Aaron Rodgers. Now, not the biggest contract, not the biggest in terms of guaranteed money. That's Deshaun Watson's contract. So it's kind of like with all these new contracts, there's something that the team is giving them where they, in one category, can say, hey, I broke this record. That seems to be important to these superstar players.
Oh, well, more important to the agents, right? I think that's the big deal, is no matter what it is, I don't know how much important it is to the actual players, because the amount of money is going to be crazy regardless. But I look at this and go, this is what an agent can sell. An agent right now, and I think it's what Torrey Gandy, who's DK Metcalf's agent, he's able to say, listen, this is, you come to me. I'm going to get you paid. I'm going to get you almost guaranteed money because of how I know how to negotiate with the Seattle Seahawks and NFL. And oh, by the way, guess what? I'm getting ready to get Deebo Samuel paid as well. So, I mean, the big winner of this is you start looking forward. Yes, it is DK Metcalf, of course, is his agent because they're going to get absolute bags of money, okay? It also is the Seahawks because they locked in a true star at a young age, who's not going to be a holdout. But the true winner here, I think, is Trey Lance, because now that this deal got done, the framework for Deebo Samuel's deal is going to get done, which is going to be monstrous. You did not want to have Trey Lance going in and not having Deebo Samuel a happy camper going into this upcoming season, in which the 49ers can make some waves.
I do think that Deebo Samuel's deal is going to get done. Right now, he's a hold-in. So he is showing up to training camp. I mean, that's the new direction that we've seen taken in the NFL.
When did that become a new phrase, by the way, the hold-in?
The hold-in. Well, the first time I remember it happening was with Xavier Howard some years ago in Miami. That was the first hold-in that I remember. And now it's the way to do things. And that's because under the new CBA, the fines are so much more hefty than they used to be. And the team doesn't get rid of those fines anymore. They can't once you sign your deal. It used to be that, hey, you didn't bother to show up to anything because, yes, you'd get fined every day. But then when you actually did work out your new extension, the team would, go ahead and take care of those fines for you. They're not allowed to do that under the new CBA. So these guys have to show up or they're going to get fined $50,000 per day, which is significant money no matter how much money you make.
What are you doing a hold-in? I mean, think about that in any other business. And it just goes to show you how just ridiculous professional sports are in so many different levels. And I love it about guys just showing up to work. They went in. Do they get dressed? Do they hang out? Are they on their phone during the hold-in? This is hilarious to me about how they'll show up and be like, I ain't doing that today. I'm holding in.
I'm holding in. I'm sitting here and I'm watching y'all do all the things that I'm going to refuse to do over here because of my contract situation. They do show up to the facility and pass their physical. So that they do this week in training camp when everybody reported, when all the vets reported. I mean, even Garoppolo in San Francisco showed up, even though he knows he's not going to be the quarterback moving forward of the San Francisco 49ers, and they're trying to work something out because he had to pass that physical in order to help facilitate a trade or wherever he ends up, if he ends up cut down the road by the San Francisco 49ers. And we will get into that at some point on today's show. This is Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Amber Wilson and Peter Burns filling in for the guys. But what happened here with DK, you are absolutely right. DK gets his deal in Seattle. The next domino to fall then is going to be the Deebo Samuel deal. That may be somewhat dependent on what happens here with Garoppolo, because right now Garoppolo is on their books if he was to start week one for $27 million. We know they're not going to get to that point because they would cut him before they paid him that money. It seems like that's the direction that it's headed in San Francisco. They're going to try to trade him, though, obviously, and get that money off their books.
Right, you got to. You either have to cut him, which I doubt is going to happen, or you're going to try to get some type of mid-level, give me a fifth-round pick, and I'd love for it to be the Seahawks, especially now with DK Metcalf, because I want to see the drama of someone getting traded in their own division. But Amber, they're not going to trade him to the Seattle Seahawks. At this point, you're going to trade him outside of that division. And could it be the Giants right now and have them and Daniel Jones? I'm all in for a little quarterback competition over there for the Giants.
I'm in on that as well. I've always said that could be a really interesting landing spot there for Garoppolo when the Giants didn't pick up Jones' fifth-year option on his contract. But I do think with DK, what's interesting about what Seattle just did, Peter, is they're signaling to us, at least in my opinion, that they're not in a full rebuild, which has been confusing because it seemed like they were in a full rebuild, right? But if you're in a rebuild, you're going to rip it down to the studs and then rebuild it. And I never understood why Pete Carroll would want to be part of a rebuild, frankly, at 70 years old. But with them committing to DK now for the next 3 years and trying to maintain their superstar wide receiver, even if we don't know who's really going to be throwing him the football in a year, because it's probably not going to look right with Drew Lock doing it. So maybe it's CJ Stroud or whoever is out of this next draft. Then DK is going to be there to help that next guy up, right?
Or the next free agent quarterback, right? And because then you'll look at it and go, hey, what entices me? So Russell Wilson chose the Denver Broncos because what enticed him is what brought him the success in Seattle, which was a great defense. And hey, you can win a championship here. So when you're trying to recruit anybody, whether it's college, whether it's a professional sport or anything, it's like, give me a reason to come here. And for any reason, somebody's sitting down and they're like, hey, by the way, DK Metcalf, that guy, an absolute just stud wide receiver, one of the top 5 in the NFL, maybe in the last, 10 years, the way he's playing early. Guess what? You get to play with this guy. That's a great amount of bait that they can use.
It is. And I think it shows that they think DK can, I guess, elevate whatever talent they end up bringing in under center, because if you rip it all the way down to the studs, then it's going to be a long time before you build it back. To your point, if they're able to bring in somebody through free agency at that position, and maybe that's more what they're going to end up doing. I've always thought in Seattle that they're hoping that the 49ers' backs are against the wall and they get to a point where they have to cut Garoppolo, because it's pretty inconceivable to imagine that they would trade Garoppolo up there within the division. But if they do cut him, I do think that would be a really good landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo to consider, especially now that they locked in DK Metcalf. I think that makes that job all the more attractive, because I do feel like we have some direction now in Seattle. DK and the Seahawks got in the zone on a new deal. Get in the Zone is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the Zone, AutoZone. Am I crazy for thinking that, Peter, that this now just elevates the Seahawks back to a place of, they're not completely lost?
Yeah, it buoys them. And what I mean by that is the fact that it can't fall apart, because if all of a sudden Geno doesn't work out, if Drew Lock doesn't work out, and then you're trying to go to DK Metcalf, a 3-year deal, you're able to say, okay, chill, you're the guy, you're going to be a leader on this team, you're already putting up those numbers. And if I'm DK Metcalf, I'm like, give me Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, what can you do to put that together? Give me a quarterback. Because, listen, guys didn't want to be in